what's very interesting is that John and I, as judges from overseas, have a very different gaze to that of Rafaela, who was the Australian judge. I think what I wanted to try to avoid was cliche, any preconceived ideas. I was looking for fresh work that was, interesting. The subject matter was strong, maybe a little bit challenging. I was particularly looking for emerging photographers. It was a great experience. It was 3,000 pictures, down to I think about 150. There were pictures at the very beginning that I was immediately drawn to, and I kind of championed, and then there were pictures that you kind of loved initially and then fell by the wayside. But it was a challenging experience. We're all fairly strong, single-minded. We're all have worked in photography for a number of years, so we have kind of quite strong ideas. So there was a lot of negotiation, there was a lot of debate, but I think we got it right. And that's a very interesting question, actually, and one that I have asked myself. And I think that what's important is that photography is global. It's the way we communicate. It's a contemporary form of communication. So I think it makes it interesting to bring maybe a different view from outside of the country. I think it's very, very important to have an Australian judge, and actually that made it, that was very interesting. I think it would have been possibly quite a different edit or final if we hadn't had Rafaela to inform us on perhaps the deeper issues involved in some of the work. I considered primarily the aesthetic, that it fitted with the brief, which is contemporary Australia, which, yeah, I suppose, I never thought whether it's, really rich people like shopping or people, or I didn't think about that culturally, really. But obviously, when you're judging work which is reflecting a country, you must try to include as rich a mix of cultures. And I hope that here we've got disability, we've got sexuality, we've got gender, we've got youth, I hope we've covered, more than the beach. The work was very mixed, actually. I found it very mixed. I don't think there were repetitive themes. And certainly not when we got it down to the first cull, when we got it down to the 150, which were, there was a strong body of work there and very reflective of kind of contemporary life. And I think, who can say retrospectively, but I think it was pretty broad, actually. You can find very, very strong street photography, street portraits, which are taken in a second and the people pass by each other. What we were looking for was something a bit richer. So where there appears to be a relationship between the sitter and the photographer, whether it's awkward, whether it's a loving family, whether it's somebody who's very familiar and intimate with that person, but I think that does bring an extra richness and more of a sort of more layers of depth to the photograph. I think I'm initially drawn to the power of the photograph, or something within the photograph that moves me emotionally and I relate to it, or there's something, that small thing, the punctum in the photograph that draws me to it. I initially am not so worried about that it should be properly, camera club, perfectly framed. But saying that, obviously it helps if it's considered, if it's considered photograph with nice format, with, nice framing, with the light, beautiful light, etc., etc. We judged the initial edit was all done digitally, because we were in the UK, so it was a digital edit, all done on screen. We judged the winner from the exhibition. So at that point, we're seeing the prints, and we're seeing we really get a much closer look, and then you have much more idea about what it is that you're looking at. Well, for me, photography is an object. A photograph is an object. It's a tangible, it's something sculptural. It's not something to look at on screen. It's the production of the print, the way it's framed, is vitally important to me. And I think it's when you're an artist working with photography, it should be a major consideration. There are a couple of pieces that the production was quite disappointing, and there are pictures here that I wasn't that overjoyed with. And one in particular that John really challenged, it was his, he stuck up this particular image. When I saw it in print, I absolutely was blown away by it and loved it because it was a really beautiful quality, and it was a different piece of work actually, as a framed object. I used to have a real problem with digital photography. I prefer to work with film myself. I tend to be drawn towards photographs that are shot on film, bizarrely, but I think that digital is now pretty good. The winning picture resonated with me as soon as I saw it. I think that the photographer has an approach which is extremely sensitive. I found the subject matter really moved me. I enjoyed the photo very much. It was beautifully framed. It is actually a very, very strong photograph.